Hello everyone, Neve here, and I'm here to do part 2 of going over all of my tarot decks. I just pulled out the rest of them, so if you haven't seen part 1, go watch that, and I'll put a card pop up to part 1. But this is the rest of my decks here, and I counted 23. I hope I'm not missing any, but because there's 23 here, there's just really a lot. I'm going to have to make this a 3-parter. So I'm going to get through about half of these. You know, it's an odd number. So I'll get through about half, and then we'll start. And then tomorrow I'm going to film the other half. So, all right, so let's get started. Okay, so the rest of these, or the first part of these, are the decks from my altars, like the decks I use for deities, things like that, and then a lot of them were the rest of the room. So the first one up here is the Guardians of the Night Tarot, and this, oh, sorry about the dog, she's barking outside, but this is by MJ Cullinane, and I really love a lot of her decks. So I have the independent version, not the mass market version, and I have to say, I personally prefer this, because I've seen the mass market version. It does look nice, and it's a different card stock and a different size card, but I'm a really big fan of MJ Cullinane's independent card stock. It's on the thinner side, but it's really nice and bendy. Like, I gotta get under the camera to do this, but I can shuffle. Woo! I got to go around the camera, so that's what the issue is here. Well, all right. So I'm already messing this up. But all right. So what I can do, and what I normally do with these decks, is I shuffle them sideways. I can't bridge them like that, but I have a really easy time shuffling them sideways. Shuffling them like this is actually a little bit more difficult for me. I was able to do it today because I did my Ganesha reading, and this is the deck that I have on my Ganesha altar this month. So yeah, and I, of course, before the camera was on me, I was able to shuffle this like totally smoothly, and now the camera's on me and I can't. But anyway, I prefer this one over the mass market one, mostly because I love the borders on this. I do think I like the backs on the independent version more, though I do still really love this. I love this teal color, and I made the bag to match, and this is... this fabric I'm pretty much done with. Like, I used the last of it. Not on this one, but on a different deck. But yeah, I really love the dark teal on this, and I think it's just perfect for this deck. These cards are gorgeous. Sorry about that about my dog. She likes to wait until the camera's on to start barking. But I mean, the artwork in this deck is absolutely amazing. And I do really love this for a lot of spiritual type readings. Yeah, especially with deities. And it goes, oh, look how beautiful this card is. It goes great for Ganesha, and I also have used this deck for Lakshmi, which with great success. Yeah, I feel called to use this deck in that sort of realm of my spirituality. I could potentially use this deck for Caradwyn, the Welsh goddess, though I haven't done readings with her before, so I don't know. But that's a possibility. But yeah, I love this deck. I think it's gorgeous, and I really like the cardstock for the independent version. It's on the thinner side. It's really nice and bendy. It's almost like a linen. It's almost a linen. Like, there's a texture to it. But I find it easy to shuffle, and I have very small hands. I find it easier to shuffle sideways than I do long ways, but yeah. Anyway, so that is a Guardian of the Night Tarot. Okay, next up, we have another MJ Cullinane deck, and in fact, the next two, this one and the next one are going to be MJ Cullinane. So this is the deck that I use for On Morrigan. This is the Crow Tarot. This is the bag that I made for it, and I keep the book in here as well. So yeah, I love this deck for her. This is the mass market version, and I find the independent Guardian of the Night a lot easier to shuffle than this one. It's just I can't shuffle it sideways. because it's not wide enough to do that, whereas the independent version was wide. So I have to do it this way, but it does make my fingers hurt because it's quite the stretch. But I can do it, and I've gotten better with this deck over time, shuffling, riffle shuffling. So I do have to often overhand shuffle with this. So this deck is fantastic, and before I got this deck in, I had decided that I was going to get this deck specifically for On Morrigan, and I kind of wish I hadn't done that. Now, I will say that now it feels like a Morrigan deck, but when I first got it in and I started, I almost immediately dedicated it to her. I kind of regretted that because it wasn't connecting for me with her right away. This is very cool. But over, I ended up doing a full deep dive of this deck, which is not on my channel. This was something I did on my own. And, after going through that entire deep dive really helped me bond with this deck, and now it's perfect for On Morrigan. I think it's fantastic for her, and I love this deck a lot. I didn't think I was gonna be really into the collage style, but I found that I quite like this particular way of doing it, because there's a lot of collage style decks that are just not my thing at all. But I have definitely come to really appreciate this deck, and it feels very On Morrigan to me. So yeah, I don't know. I may possibly trim down the edges on the 3 sides instead of 4. The back lends itself well to that, but I think it might be allow me to shuffle it a lot easier that way. All right, so that is the Crow Tarot. Okay, next up, another MJ Cullinane deck. It is so cold in this room right now. So this is the Wise Dog Tarot. And that's the other reason why I'm going to split this into 3 parts, because it's just really, really cold in here right now. So I don't want to go through all 23 of these decks in one sitting. All right, so this is the bag that I made for it. It kind of matches the Barkana Tarot, though I did this one first. And I love the Celtic knotwork paw print here, and this is the deck that I use for Lou. I have not formally dedicated this to him yet. I was kind of learning from my issue with the Crow Tarot in this sense. By the way, this is the mass market version, and I will eventually go through and trim off all 4 edges on this deck, because it's just a little too long for me, and I think once I do that, it'll be a lot easier to shuffle for me. And that's the whole reason why I prefer MJ Cullinane's independent decks versus the mass market versions. It's just the cardstock and size that they choose for the mass market version just hurt my hands, and I can't really shuffle them comfortably, whereas I can with the independent versions. All right, so this deck is fantastic. I'm okay with the backs; they're fine, but I kind of wish. I don't know. Maybe I wish the red bones were light blue. I think that would look good. Or, yeah, the red bones, because we got white, black, and maybe if these were light blue, I would like them more. But the red, I think, is a bit too, I don't know. I don't know what the right word is, but it's just not quite right for me. A beautiful, beautiful deck. I am more of a dog person than a cat person. So I have 1 cat deck, I think. My daughters have cat decks, but I have 1 cat deck myself, whereas I have 2 dog decks, and I'm definitely more likely to get a dog deck again than I am to get another cat deck. But who knows? Maybe there's a cat deck in my future, another one, I mean. So I like this. It's great for Lou. I do think that I'm going to, oh, this is upside down. I do think I'm going to dedicate it to him on Lunasa. Yeah, I think that's my plan. I'm going to officially dedicate this deck to him on Lunasa. But I mean, we've gone more than a year, I think, of using this deck with Lou, and so, I mean, and when I say dedicate to, what I mean is that this deck will only be used for Lou readings, and my Crow Tarot is only used for on Morrigan readings. I can use other decks with these deities, but this deck will only be used with Lou, and that deck is only used with on Morrigan. That's what I mean by dedicated to. So this has a lot of that energy, a lot of his energy in this deck already. So I am definitely at that point where I feel comfortable dedicating this to him, and I will do that on Lunasa. All right, so that is the Wise Dog Tarot. Okay, so I rearranged these just a little bit so that I could do the other MJ Cullinane deck next, because I had this one further down, and this is the Grimalkin Tarot. This is my only cat deck. I really like this bag that I made for it. It's really cute. I went with a kind of a summery vibe with this. I really like the bright yellows, and this was like technically an Alice in Wonderland thing. This was the Cheshire Cat, but in a Alice in Wonderland themed thing. But I like that for this because it doesn't specifically look like Alice in Wonderland. It's a cat, and it's really cute and bright. And then I had this cat made out of florals here embroidered on. I think this is super cute and fun and bright and colorful, which really goes with a lot of this deck. However, I think I don't like the box, the colors on the box. There's just too much gray, and I don't quite like that. And I will say, so this is the independent version, so it's got that same cardstock that I prefer. However, I don't like the backs. Here's all that gray and blue, which doesn't really match the bag here. But I think a lot of these cards, I mean, I was going for a lot of the bright, sunny ones here, because this feels very much for me like a summer deck. And this is the deck I like to use for the winter solstice. I will use it often for the goddess Anya. I mean, this cat is nice and gray, which sort of matches the backs, but a lot of the cards in here are really, really summery looking to me anyway. So I kind of prefer it for that. And I do wish the border down at the bottom was not gray, but like bright and sunny. Oh, this is so cute. This is a very cute deck. I like it a lot. Very similar to the Wise Dog Tarot and the Crow Tarot. So very right in line with MJ Cullinane's art. It is very cute. I like it. Like I said, I like this one for summer. In fact, let me see. Like here, this is like really summery. Most of the pentacles in this deck are got a lot of like sun type energy in this. And I like it a lot, and that's why this, I love this Emperor. And that's why this deck is definitely a summer deck to me, despite the fact that the backs look very wintry. That's my only main issue with this deck. Look how pretty that one is that the backs don't seem to match a lot of the cards in my mind. And I chose the bright sunny florals for the bag choices and the colors versus the backs, which are mostly gray. And the box itself is a little grayed out, and I do wish it was sunnier. But that's just my personal opinion. So that is the Grimalkin Tarot. Okay, next up, we have the Murder of Crows Tarot, and this is a deck that I will often use for on Morrigan, and I got the limited edition version. It was available on Amazon for a very short time. It took forever to come in, though, and this is the deck number that I have. It comes in this type of case that goes this way, which is a little annoying. It's fine. I don't have a bag for this. I kind of don't really have a desire to make a bag for this, but because it kind of sits just nice on my shelf. Sorry about the dog. It kind of sits nice and neatly on my shelf like this, so I'm going to kind of keep it in the box, I think. So this version of the deck came with a lot of the red accents, because the original version of the Murder of Crows is just black and white, whereas the limited edition version has pops of red, kind of like blood. You know, it is a very macabre deck. I mean, I like the imagery. It feels very Bive to me, the goddess Bive, which is one of the three Morinia. Yeah, I really very much prefer this with the red in it. I don't think I was really called to use the original black and white version, but once you add the pops of red in this, it just makes this really burst. I think, and it just makes it creepier and like I said, very macabre. I like this deck a lot, and it is really nice for Bive readings. Though, I mean, I don't. It's not limited to on Morrigan, so it doesn't Namrinia, so it's not specifically for them, but it is obviously something I will often use with on Morrigan, Namrinia, the Bive. So yeah, really nice deck, very dark. There are 2 extra cards here that are front and back. These are kind of significant, querent cards. So we've got the Crow Mother and the Crow Father, and we have the Crow of Dawn and the Crow of Dusk. So very neat. I never used those cards though. I pretty much just use the deck itself. It is quite large though, and the cardstock is, I mean, it's highly laminated and kind of, I wouldn't say plasticky, but yeah, it's a little too thick because I mean this deck is it's a little on the thick side here, and it's really long. Like my fingers do not even, like I can't even get half of this, and I'm already not even grabbing all of this with my fingers. So I can't riffle shuffle this deck at all. It has to be an overhand for me, which is a bummer because I do prefer riffle shuffling, but it is a very nice deck. So that is the Murder of Crows Tarot. Okay, next up, this is not a deity deck. However, I have been using this deck this month for Undagda, so this was on my deity, on one of my deity altars, Dagda's altar. So this is the Sacred Sites Tarot, and I believe this deck is out of print. I'm not going to apologize for talking about out of print decks, pretty much ever on my channel, I don't think, because I'm just showing my decks. So, and this one, unfortunately, is out of print. I love this deck. I did edge it in like this kind of a shimmery tealy color, which I think is really pretty. This cardstock is that old style Los Scarabeo. Yeah, this is Los Scarabeo. Double checking. Yeah, Los Scarabeo. It's like that old style Los Scarabeo cardstock where the tarot cards are skinny and I mean, lengthwise, they're about normal average height, I think, but they're skinnier, and it's really, really, really thin cardstock. But it makes for shuffling this cardstock incredibly easy. I mean, I can get a nice big bend from this and a real nice bridge with that. So it is. This kind of cardstock is quite ideal for riffle shuffling, but it's, it is very, flimsy. I think that's the word I was trying to look for. So I love this deck. It's really super cool. There's elements of sacred sites, basically, because like right here, I think this is the Taj Mahal. No, that's not the Taj Mahal. That's oh my gosh, I'm blanking on this, but this is the moon. So I'll go straight to the thing here. I know what this is going to be. Alhambra, of course, Alhambra. So this is in Granada, Spain. Alhambra was a fortified city with mosques, schools, and bodegas. Its name in Arabic is Al-Hamra, or the Red One. So that's what the book says about this. What I like about this deck, it's a lot of history. It's a lot of like history type stuff, which I find incredibly fascinating. But what I would like to do is have a version of this deck, one, on better cardstock, and two, with the name of the place on there, and where that's located, so that I don't constantly have to go back to the book, and then do a deep dive of that said deck, and really get to know all these places. And I mean, it would be a fun, almost like school report sort of thing. But I really, really like this deck a lot. I think this is one of those decks where it would benefit being on larger cardstock, and I say that not lightly, because I have such small hands that I kind of prefer the smaller cards. But the details, they're just, let me see if I can, is it going to focus? Okay. I mean, there's so much detail in all of these, but I think it gets lost a little bit in such a small format. Let me see if I can adjust. There we go. Focus. But I mean, the artwork is stunning. Here's a Nazi thing, because this is the Ten of Swords. So I mean, there's stuff like that in there too. So there is some disturbing references and imagery. This is the Ganges River. So I mean, because it reflects a lot of different things. This makes me think of Doctor Who because of the weeping angels here. It's like, don't blink. All right, focus. All right. Yeah. So here's Nessie. That's cool. Loch Ness. I really, really like this deck. It's really fun and interesting, and I like researching a lot of the images on these cards, and kind of I really hope to do some sort of deep dive of this, and I think I just want to have a version of this that has the names of the places on it, though. Yeah, so that is the Sacred Sites Tarot. Okay, next up, another older deck here. This is a really old bag that I made. Like, I don't know how long ago I made this. I want to say like 15 years, a really long time ago. And this is the Golden Universal Tarot. This is basically the only deck I have that is like super Rider-Waite-Smith. Like, I mean, it's the Golden Universal, so it's the straight up Rider-Waite-Smith. It's just the I don't know who does this imagery. Let's see. Roberto de Angelis. And this is Lo Scarabeo. Yeah, I mean, it's basically Rider-Waite-Smith. Yeah, so, but it's that imagery. It's just redone a little bit. And I don't know when this deck came out. I'm not sure that it lists this on here. 2012. So maybe not 15 years ago. It's my daughter is, that was the year my youngest was born. So, yeah, so I guess probably about 10 years ago is when I made this bag and I got this deck. But I gotta say, I love the bright, shiny gold foiling of this. It's really fun. I do really like this deck a lot. It's not one that I use a lot because it is that ultra traditional imagery, but with a twist because it is the Golden Universal. I do wish the backs had some of the gold foiling on it, though. But I mean, this is... It doesn't photograph super great, obviously. A lot of the metallic stuff doesn't photograph well, but I do really like this. And there's not much to show with this because we've all seen the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. Yeah, and I think what the other deck that I have that might also fit in this category of being very Rider-Waite-Smith is probably the Morgan Greer Tarot, which I'm going to do in the part 3 video. But yeah, I love all the gold foiling on this deck. Yeah, so if I were ever to do a RWS specific study, I would probably use this Golden Universal. All right, so that is the Golden Universal Tarot. Next up, we have the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot, and this is the bag that came in. This is from Usi, and I also have the extra cards in here, the moon cards, which are quite nice, and they do have a little bit of that metallic sheen to them. Very pretty. I like the extra cards, but I don't often use extra cards. Now, I did not break the seal in this. I open it from the bottom. I don't think I want to break the seal, honestly. I know a lot of people will be like, just do it, break the seal, but like, it's so pretty. I don't want to break the seal. All right, so this is a fantastic deck. However, it is too long for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and take off the bottoms of the major arcana, and oh no, I'm going to take off the tops of the major arcana and the bottoms of the pips because of that. Yeah, the bottom of the pips, the tops of the major arcana, and let me see if there's a court card somewhere over here, because I think they're blank on the top. I think. Yeah, here we go. Like one of the court cards, I'm going to take off the top. And then I'm also going to take off the sides on each one. I just haven't gotten the courage to do that yet because this is such a nice deck that I am a little concerned about doing that. But this is a fantastic deck. It's very old world feeling. So it does feel like I'm, I don't know, being transported in time. It's, I don't know what I'm trying to say with this, but it's got that old world witchy feel, if that makes sense. There's an authentic feel to this. And I'm not sure if that's making any sense at all, but it makes sense in my head. And the pip cards are, in fact, pips, but there is scenery, so they are scenic pips. Not that kind of deck, but yeah, so I do really like this. The cardstock is thin-ish, but it's of good quality and it's very bendy. It is really linen, and a lot of people will talk about how slippy this deck is. And I prefer linen cardstock, but I think because this deck is so long, it's a little difficult to shuffle. I can't quite get my fingers around it. I can, I'm underneath the camera right now, so I gotta really stretch my fingers, and I already lost a few cards, but yeah, and it's already hitting each other, so it's not even gonna bridge for me. Like, I can't riffle shuffle this deck, and so I really need to trim off the edges on here and leaving just one top on top or bottom, depending on the card. So this, on the aces, I would take off the top, and same with the court cards, and I would take off the top of all the major arcana and the bottoms of the pips. So that's the plan. All right, so that is the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot. Okay, so I've got 4 more left for this video. I think we're going to do the Unalio Yaus next. This is the 5th edition. I do have a bag for this, but I'm in the middle of redoing it, and I've shown the bag several times. It's super pretty, but I made it too big for the deck, so I finally got around to seam ripping that deck apart, and I'm going to make it much smaller. It's just not done yet. So so yes, this is the 5th edition of the Unalio Yaus. The backs are really pretty. The size of these cards are about poker sized, maybe a little bit longer than poker. Yeah, so I like this small size personally. It's nice to shuffle. Like, I can, even though this is kind of a thicker deck, the cardstock is, I wouldn't say thick, but it's on the thicker side, I think. It's very, very good quality, but it's also really bendy, and because it's smaller, I'm able to shuffle it very easily. So yeah, this is a beautiful deck. I mean, look at all these colors. There's a lot of greens in this, with pops of like a light purple and a very muted yellow with black and white. And those are the primary colors of this deck. And there are a couple different shades of green, because there's like this lime color, there's this kind of hunter emerald color, and then there's kind of this olivey color. So there are like 3 different shades of green, and then there's pops of like this lavender. Yeah, I think this deck is beautiful. I was unaware when I got it that the imagery is based off of Marseille instead of RWS, which is not a system I'm well versed at. So I did get the creator's PDF of the Marseille meanings, and this is definitely a deck that I'm going to need to do a full deep dive of, but I don't think it's going to be such a big venture that I think it's going to wait until next year, because my focus this year, I'm still doing a whole lot of tarot and stuff, but my main focus this year is learning Japanese, so I'm really focusing on that, and I think doing a full deep dive of this deck it's just going to, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have time for it this year. I think this is my favorite card, and this was the inspiration photo for the bag. The bag has skulls on it. And skulls and flowers, and it's got the colors of this deck. It's gorgeous. Anyway, so that is the Unalio Yaus 5th edition. I just put that away, but I forgot to mention that the Unalio Yaus is in Portuguese or Galician. But yeah, it's in a different language. All right, so next up, we have the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot, and this is the bag that came with it. I actually got this in a Witch's Moon box, and it also came with a stone that I keep with it. I think it's like snowflake obsidian, but I might be wrong. I forget actually what stone this is, but I keep it with the deck. And I have no real plans to make a bag for this. I think it's happy in this mesh black bag. So I like I've always liked the look of this deck, but I never thought I would actually get this deck because it seemed a little too goddessy. I mean, it's goddesses in the name, and I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much, but I'm very particular in the types of deity decks that I'll get and bond with, and I thought this would be a deck that would not be my style, and in a lot of ways it isn't really, but once I got it in and started looking through the guidebook, which, by the way, this is really beautifully done. It's got like black edges and the paper is black. This is a very nicely done deck. And kind of looking at the system of this deck and realizing that I do actually like the way that this was done. It's not one of my top decks, but it is a deck that I have really come around to, and I'm glad I have it in my collection. I'm glad it came in one of the Witch's Moon boxes, and I was able to give it a shot, and I do very much like it. Nice Eight of Pentacles there. That's my favorite tarot card in general. It's the Eight of Pentacles. Yeah, and I mean, some of the pip cards are quite pippy, but it's done in a way that I really like. It's got all these crystals, and I like it. Yeah, so I see this deck less as like a goddess deck and more of like a general feminist deck, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, everything has been feminized, or yeah, basically, because this is I think the warriors are the knights, I think. Basically, anything that alluded to the character of the tarot being male presenting has been kind of renamed. So, like this is the magician. It was renamed the witch. Not necessarily that the magician is necessarily male, but basically it's an all-female presenting deck is what I'm trying to say here. And of course, the cards where there wasn't anything specific, like there wasn't a gender specific in the original RWS, they kept the same. Or if it was a female presenting character in the original, they kept the same titles. Like this is the High Priestess. Yeah. So Reclamation. This is 15. So is that the devil? I think. Yeah, anyway. And Revolution for that one here. Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's not a deck I use often. I have used this for Lakshmi readings, and I thought this actually went really nicely with her. So I have used it for a goddess. But I like that while a lot of the characters allude to a certain goddess that you may know of, it doesn't say that that's that goddess. And that's what I think I like about this deck, is you can just think of these as just women around the world embodying a goddess type energy. And that's kind of how I look at this deck. And because of that, I have a much easier time using this deck now. And I did just use this recently for a client, and I thought it went very well. Nymph, I think, are pages. Yeah, I mean, this is a really nice deck, and it's a deck that surprised me. And I do really like the backs, because it kind of looks like stars, and I'm a fan of that. I do think, however, that the name of the deck is entirely too long. You could have just called it the Night Goddess Tarot, and that's just fine. The Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot is just a little too much, but that's my personal opinion. You don't have to agree. All right, so that is the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. Okay, next up we have something that I keep in this box that is very inefficient. I'm going to get a bag for this deck, I swear. It's just right now I keep it in this box, and it doesn't, because there's nothing that clasps this shut. This could fling open at any time, and the deck itself sits above the lid, so I mean these slide over all the time. It's a really not a good storage for this deck, but this is where I've kept it for a very, very long time, since I've had the deck basically. So this is the Wildwood Tarot, and I have trimmed it and edged it in like this green color. It's very nice. It kind of matches my sweater actually. So I also renamed a lot of these cards because the entire reason I trimmed this deck is because I really did not like the keywords on there. This is kind of a reworked deck from the, you know, and I don't know if you can tell, but I wrote with like a gold pen the new name on each card. It's kind of a reworked tarot deck, so it doesn't quite follow, it definitely goes its own way. It doesn't quite follow RWS, and because of that, it was very, very difficult for me to bond with this. I love the artwork on this and the imagery. It is very old world pagan sort of feeling, very Druidcraft. It's the same artist, Will Worthington. I mean, this is a gorgeous card. It kind of has a lot of those elements of typical, I don't want to say shamanistic, because that's, I definitely want to get away from using that word, and I have for many years now, but I think it's that, what people call that is what this deck sort of embodies for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I like it. It's just, I have a hard time with this deck. The imagery doesn't quite fit with my understanding of tarot, and so because of that, it's a little difficult for me to really bond with this. And in fact, I have not used this deck in ages. I'm thinking of getting a new version of this deck and maybe keeping, not trimming it down or anything. And yeah, because I renamed this, like, instead of, I think, did it call, I think it called the Wands suit Bows. Well, I just renamed it Fire. I just renamed the suits to Elements, and then did it that way because that made more sense to me. I've said this before, but when decks get renamed, cards get renamed in tarot decks, it kind of bugs me. It depends on how it's done. I understand why they do it for certain decks, but in general, I kind of just wish the original names were kept, because it's a little difficult to, especially if you use a lot of different tarot decks. It's easier to keep things consistent. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so, I mean, the artwork in this is fantastic. I just have not really been able to connect with their understanding of what this, of how this deck functions. But that's my personal opinion there. So that is the Wildwood Tarot. Okay, so we're on the last one for this part. There will be a part 3, but yeah, it's entirely too cold in this room for me to continue doing this. And the last deck here is a good one. This is my one of my most recent, in fact, I think it's the most recent tarot deck I got, and that is the Star Trek Tarot. And this is not the mass market next generation version that's on Amazon. This is an independent deck based on the original series, and it is infinitely better than that mass market version. And this also has the licensing, and this was done by Mark Adam Baum. And he did such a fantastic job. And he's such a nice guy, too, because I did my review of this deck, which you can watch on my channel. And he contacted me, and it was, like, super nice. And he thanked me for the review. I mean, I'm just so impressed with this deck. I mean, each card is an episode from the original series, and it all makes sense. And obviously, Mr. Baum knows what he's doing with tarot and Star Trek. He's a lifelong Trekkie, just like myself. But yeah, I think this might be my favorite. This one and the Gorn one, the Trouble with Tribbles for 10 of Coins. I love it. Yeah, I mean, this is not Lazy Pips. It's full scenic pips because it's scenes from the show itself, and it makes sense. The episodes and scenes he chose for each of these cards make sense for that tarot card. And the cardstock itself is very good quality, standard tarot size, nice and bendy, not too thin, not too thick, but it's a good quality. It shuffles nicely. Yeah, let me pull it out here and shuffle. And I don't even need to really get under the camera. I'm getting under a little bit here, but it shuffles very smoothly. Yeah, fantastic. And I've been using this deck for basically, for my nightly readings for myself, I pick out one deck that I use for a full week, and then I switch it out for another deck. Since I got this for Christmas, I have used this deck for 3 weeks, I think. Maybe 2.5 weeks. I may have switched it out at some point there. But yeah, I used this for like 2 to 3 weeks straight before I finally was like, okay, let me move on to a different deck for my nightly readings. But I think this is fantastic. He did such a good job. As a Trekkie and a tarot reader, I'm infinitely impressed with this deck. Yeah, so that is the Star Trek Tarot, the good one. And, oops, I think that was the lid. Yep, okay, we're going to have to put that here. This is the Star Trek Tarot, the good one, the independent version, but it is also licensed. So it's fully licensed Star Trek Tarot. All right, so that is it for this part. Stay tuned for part 3. I'll have part 3 up, I think, in 2 or 3 days after I put this one out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.